So, a pleasure to be in a Zabbix Meetup. Normally, we are running quite a few different webinars. Right now, in a meetup, presenting something that is, well, typically way out of my comfort zone. Monitoring Office 365, Defender, and other cloud resources. Before we actually jump into the topic, Arthur gave the introduction already. Brian van Baekel, working as Zabbix trainer, Zabbix consultant for Opensource ICT Solutions. And we are a Zabbix partner in the Netherlands, United Kingdom, and in the United States. So literally working 24/7 with the product, providing consultancy, training, etc. And that means that we have customers. Luckily, we have customers. And some time ago, we had a customer requesting us build a Zabbix environment. Well, that's what we do for a living, so that should be fine. Request. For a somewhat greenfield installation, they had some monitoring in place, but yeah, it was really, really basic. Customer was a full Azure shop and a full Windows shop, which is great fun because typically we work with different type of customers. So it was basically a challenge over there. The requirements were not too complicated as it was looking at first. They needed dashboards to get a quick overview. They needed monitoring of Azure Defender, and they needed monitoring of Cisco Meraki. Okay, well, sure. Why not? I mean, Zabbix is flexible enough, so let's do it. Time of implementation last month, basically. So it is really, really fresh. When we take a look at the requirements, dashboards. I mean, well, if you're familiar with Zabbix, we have dashboards. We can add as many dashboards as we want. We can have multi-page dashboards, a lot of different widgets. Sure, tick in the box, we can fix it. Azure Defender, they were a bit more specific. They wanted open incidents and risky users. And at that point, I was like, yes, that should be possible, but not out of the box yet. So it's a challenge. I mean, it's cloud. Zabbix made some cloud templates, should be possible. The other requirement was a bit more challenging, Cisco Meraki. And at the point we were discussing the options with the customer, the official template was not available yet, but we saw in support.zabbix.com that development was going on. So we simply told that customer, you know what, wait a tiny bit, template will be there, and we have another tick in the box. The only thing that was left, Azure Defender open incident risky users. So, well, I mentioned, typically we are working with a different type of clients. So I had to look up what is Defender actually. And well, you can see the screenshot, pre and post breach enterprise defense suite. Okay, sounds fancy. But here we can actually see that there is one user at risk. And well, when I created this screenshot, also no active incidents. So Defender is basically integrating with Office 365 users, etc., and the endpoints. And from there, well, evaluating if there is a problem or not. Okay. Office 365 cloud. What's going on? Well, we started researching the options, and eventually we figured out that we can get all Defender information via Azure AD application permissions. So we had to create a new Azure AD application. Then in that application, create a token. And from there, we are able to talk to the API, getting out metrics. Okay, talking to an API. That's possible with Zabbix. So we moved forward and we had that buzzword Azure already. And then the question, of course, is how to get started, where to get started. And in this case, it was by far the easiest thing to look at what Zabbix already created. So there is an already predefined template to monitor virtual machines in Azure. That's done via script item. And in that script item, we are basically utilizing JavaScript to talk to those remote API or the remote endpoints. In that script item, if you look at the workflow, it is getting an authentication token, and with that token, performing all calls to get statistics out. Wait a minute. That means that if we can talk to the remote API, and we have a script in Zabbix that is doing roughly the same thing already, we should be able to move forward. And we figured out the workflow should be create our Azure environment, work from there, get the official script, strip out what we don't need, change the URLs so that we can talk to the different API endpoints and profit. Well, sounds really straightforward. Looking back to it, it was not too complicated, but it seems like a daunting task to start with. So let's start with preparing Azure. At first, you log in, then you go to the AD environment, click on app registration and create a new app there. Within that app, you must assign permissions. And it depends on what you would like to monitor, of course, which things should be monitored, which endpoints should be enabled. And that list is extremely long. Give me a few moments, I will show you. And once the permissions are assigned, you create a new client secret. And Dimitri already mentioned you need that secret to talk to that API. Okay, so we actually get out the application ID, that client secret or password, and the tenant ID to talk to. Perfect. Lovely. 3 metrics, some default scripts, templates. There we go. When we are talking about permissions and API endpoints to talk to, you must assign API permissions, and then you get a page with all default Microsoft APIs. And from there, you can select whatever endpoint you need to talk to. And here I was already looking at Microsoft Graph, interesting, Dynamics 365, Intune, Flow Services, Skype for Business, and that list just continues and continues. So Azure Cosmos DB, Data Lake, Azure Maps, storage. Okay, that's extensive, really extensive. And it just continues because right now we are just looking at the default Microsoft APIs, but there is also an option to request API permissions for APIs that my organization is using. In that list, there is an option Windows Defender ATP as a method. And from there, we can just tell that we would like to read all alerts or read and write. Well, in this case, we are building monitoring, so read only should be sufficient. We enable that one, and the Azure environment is basically done, finished. Now we jump back to Zabbix, and we must work on that script. So take out the default template, Azure Virtual Machine by HTTP. If you look at the template closely, there are 52 items, 1 script, 51 dependent items. And at this point, I don't really care about the dependent items. The only thing that is really interesting is the script item, because there the JavaScript is available. And the JavaScript is logging into the endpoint to Azure, gathering all information. And well, in the official script, everything is taken out in bulk, pushed into the dependent items, and monitoring is going. Again, I don't care about the dependent items at this point because I need the script logic. Okay, get the script, open it. You will roughly see something like on the screenshot, and this is just an example. It's not the full script, and we strip out whatever we don't need. So basically, we only need the authentication part and the structure to make a call to Azure combined with a bit of error handling. Once you got that one ready, we have the structure to make that Azure call, but we need to change the endpoints. And changing the endpoints is basically scrolling down in the script. And this is the original script, by the way. Here you can see that it is doing an Azure VM virtual machine request against some sort of endpoint. And we changed that one to the endpoint that is actually needed for the resources that we need. Endpoint changed, and we immediately jump into the testing part. Well, of course, there is a bit of debugging here. I mean, we know the endpoint, we know how to change that script, but it never works from the very first time. However, the second or the third attempt, we were able to test it. And testing is just in Zabbix creating a new item, providing all parameters, hit the test button. Once you hit the test button, you will see the pre-processing steps, but also the results are over here. And although it is not really visible, so let me just jump to the next slide. This is JSON format. And in the JSON format, I can see the incident name. I can see the create time, severity, status. That seems exactly like what we needed. And at this point, for me, it is becoming a lot easier because the hard work is done, the data is in Zabbix. And then we get back into my comfort zone because, well, I'm somewhat familiar with the product and I know how to work with it. So it's time to parse the data. We have that item, and that item, well, is gathering all information. So from this moment on, we call it the master item. Then that full list is retrieved. And we need to create items per incident. And I'm going to bet you there will be multiple incidents, and I'm not going to make items manually, not at all. So we create a low-level discovery rule. In that low-level discovery rule, we create item prototypes. And of course, we need some trigger prototypes as well. So one item, get all incidents, everything. I just want everything in bulk. From there, we create a new discovery rule, and we can see already that the type is dependent and that it is getting its information from that master item. So all information is brought to the dependent discovery rule, and there we create item prototypes. So we just tell Zabbix, for every incident that is discovered, create a new item with its severity and its current status. And of course, we add a trigger prototype to alert us if something was discovered, if the status is active. Okay, perfect. This took like 2 hours to fiddle around with, and we had this one going. Now the question, of course, is, this request is fulfilled, what to do next? Risky users, that was the second request from this customer. So risky user, investigation, priority score, yada, yada, okay. So a risky user needs some sort of investigation if there is apparently to the Office 365 suite a risk. We started building this, and we quickly realized that we can just follow the exact same workflow. I mean, we are just talking to a different endpoint, and of course, we get some sort of different response back. We are working with other information there. So we got back to the script. We basically cloned the item, got back to the script, and from the original endpoint, we just changed it to something else. And something else, in this case, you can already see that we started fiddling around with extra options, but we just changed the endpoint, start testing. And did I mention same workflow? We have one master item, getting back some sort of result. The result will be pushed into a low-level discovery rule, which is dependent of that master item. And from there, of course, item prototypes. So for every user that is considered a risky user, I would like to see the details, the risk level, and the current state. And well, if there is a user at risk, I need some sort of alert. As you already can see, we are pointing to a low-level discovery macro. I'm not going to guess which user is at risk. I need to see the name of that actual user. And then I probably also love to see the details of what's going on. We enabled this. And there we are. So apparently this user is at risk. And the risk level is high. Ouch. We need to fix something. I mean, we have a risky user with a high level. We need to fix something. But luckily, the alerts were working as well. And Zabbix just gave us that heads up. Hey, this user with compromised or with the detail this, admin confirmed user compromised. You need to fix something. And I don't like fixing these things, but it is great that Zabbix is giving us the heads up. Hey, there is something going on. You need to fix it. From here, it of course continues. I mean, we have the Defender statistics with exactly the same workflow. We get out the risky users. Does that mean that we can get out other information with the same workflow? Yep. Remember those API methods a few slides ago? We have all those different endpoints available in Azure to get out that statistics. So email threads, all licenses, so available licenses, consumed licenses, you name it, license information. Users that are logged out. Actually, that one is great fun. I mean, a user is logging out himself because of providing the wrong password or something like that. And before the user is able to call you, as a service desk engineer, you know already what's going on because Zabbix gave you that alert. Monitoring mailbox sizes, monitoring managed SQL instances, including all in-depth information. We have built that one as well. And it's all just the same workflow. Talk to an API endpoint, work with the response. Now, as we are not a full Azure shop or Microsoft shop, it's always interesting how to get access to, I don't know, all those different licenses or that Office 365 environment. There is a developer program. So you sign up to that developer program, you get an instant sandbox with an E5 developer subscription to it. You get all sample data. You can see all documentation. You can just play around with it. You get, from top of mind, 16 somewhat users pre-configured. And this is actually kickstarting your playground. So instead of messing around in a production environment, you just get your developer environment, start building your templates, start working with those different endpoints without, well, risking of messing something up in the production environment. Another thing that unfortunately we found out a bit later is resources.azure.com. So you open this in a web browser, you log in, and then you get all subscriptions. And within all those subscriptions, you get all those resources. And if you click on it, you get the endpoints. And not only the endpoints, you also get all information that will be returned in the format that it will be returned in, which is speeding up the process even more. So although what Dimitri already pointed out, Zabbix is really working hard on getting more and more resources natively out of the box supported. If you want something that is not yet possible, build it yourself. All resources are available, all information is available, and there are really great ways to get started with already existing scripts. Of course, next to building it yourself, you can also contact us, and we are more than happy to guide you through and help you out. That's all from my side at this moment. Thank you, and let's see if there are any questions.
Thank you a lot, Brian. We do have one question currently. So the question is, when you are developing a script item, is there a better way rather than using a third-party tool such as VS Code, like Visual Studio Code or something else? Is there a better way than using those tools and then simply copying the code into Zabbix and pressing test and seeing if it works? Or is that the only way to go? Or maybe there is a better approach?
Of course, it highly depends on your workflow. Building it in an external tool might work. You can also just build it in the Zabbix front end. Or there is a nice command line utility speeding up the process even more, Zabbix.js, which you install on an Linux machine. I'm not even aware whether it's available on Windows or not. And from there, you build your JavaScript and test it really straightforward by just executing Zabbix.js.
So Zabbix.js, yeah, could also come in handy over here. Yeah, if
Definitely.
front end is too bulky for you, then Zabbix.js can help you. All right, thanks a lot. We received a comment in the chat also about how, hey, I'm not a Windows guy, but actually seeing how you managed to reverse engineer this and figure it out was actually really exciting and interesting. So I hope this was useful, no matter if you're a Windows guy, Azure guy, AWS guy. It doesn't really matter, like you said. It's the idea behind how you did it.
It's the workflow. It's only the workflow. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you a lot, Brian.
Thank you.